1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time,
It's my screen time too.
screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where two moms once had the leisure time to go to a movie instead of sightseeing in a beautiful city. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids. Jay, he's 3.5, and Kenny, he's 8 months old. Sorry, the cats are threatening to kill one another. So if you hear something weird, that's what that is.
And I have 3 kids, a 9-year-old named Tony and twin 6-year-olds named Libby and Nate, who are so cute, right?
They are adorable.
And especially when you're traveling, which we both have been on trips with our families lately, and you get to spend so much quality time together. But my story is actually really cute. So we went to Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado for spring break, which was amazing. And Nate is scared of horses, so he didn't go on the horseback ride I scheduled for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And instead we went to the visitor center, and he got a little booklet on becoming a junior park ranger, and he diligently filled out all the activities.
Aww.
And it's like a little workbook,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And then he got this pin that says he's a junior park ranger, and he wore it for the rest of our trip. And
Aw.
every 20 minutes he'd say, "Well, I'm a junior park ranger now." It was so cute.
Oh, hooray to raising future nerds.
Yeah.
So along similar lines, I was talking to Jay about the show we watched for our podcast this week. And he asked me what it was about. And I said, it's about travel. And his eyes got really big. And he said, through time? And I said,
Oh!
no, buddy, no, just regular travel. And his face just fell.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, yes, also raising a future nerd.
So this week in Screen Time News, we are discussing the streaming behemoth Netflix. And the title of the article is How Netflix Plans on Owning Your Kids' Screen Time. It's a Fast Company article, fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
about inside the creative culture at Netflix. I will link to it on Facebook as always. And it is all about how Amazon is going to just freaking dominate children's programming by
You
just
mean
doing it
Netflix.
all.
Netflix, right?
What did I say?
Amazon. They're dominating
Oh my
everything
gosh.
else.
Yeah, Netflix. So what did you think of the article?
I loved it. Like you said, it was a fascinating portrayal of how the creative culture works at Netflix and the way they're kind of upending the idea that as a content provider, you have to have a niche. And just saying, no, we don't need a niche. We will be all things to all people. And from a parent's perspective, I think it's about darn time. Because I know we have looked at quite a few Netflix properties for our show, but it's always felt like an area in which they were lagging to me. And specifically with the Disney streaming service coming up soon, it felt like they had to get on the stick about it. And it sounds like they are in a big way. And it sounds like there's a lot of content to be excited about.
Totally. It sounds like an amazing creative paradise. And I wish I were like an animator so I could go work there. I found it refreshing as an American consumer that they are not trying to have a brand. Like that's their whole deal, is they're just coming up with all kinds of diverse programming. It doesn't matter if it's cohesive or not. They're trying to be everything to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always looking for shows that we want to sit down and watch with our kids, which is they're trying to be everybody's favorite show.
Because that would be a big complaint of mine about Netflix's original shows for kids. Right now, they do a lot of them through a partnership with DreamWorks. And I just feel
Mhm.
like a lot of them are spin-offs of DreamWorks movies, and I am just
Yep.
not interested in watching a whole show that's a spin-off of Boss Baby or a whole show that's a spin-off of Trolls. I want more original content, and that's why I was so excited about so many of the beautiful things it sounds like they're doing there.
Yeah, I was surprised that Boss Baby is like their biggest show. It looks
Yeah.
terrible. We have not watched it. Perhaps we should put it on our watch list.
It's true. I will say that Boss Baby, the movie, was surprisingly not terrible. Did you watch the movie?
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I liked it.
So maybe we're giving the show short shrift. I'm just saying, for all the original content that Netflix puts out, it sure seems that they put out less original kids content, and I'm excited to see more.
Yep, same. And one question that I always have with Netflix is like, how do you find the good stuff? Because for us, their algorithm keeps feeding us like Treasure Buddies movies, Buddies in Space movies,
Mhm.
and they're not good. The kid searching interface that they describe at the end of the article sounds awesome, but I'm just not impressed with the because you watched this, you'll like this.
Yeah, and certainly the kids interface they have now, at least on, I guess we use primarily the Xbox to access Netflix. They have a section where it's just character pictures. It's
Hmm.
presumably so kids can navigate the interface on their own, something that I'm not fully on board with anyway. I find it to be a
Right.
really difficult way to find content as an adult. Like, just tell me what there is. I'm not just going to click on
Hmm.
a picture of Dora the Explorer or whatever.
Totally.
So I look forward to seeing what they do. I don't have much faith because I don't think they've mastered that with their adult content yet, have they?
Definitely not. Not yet. Not yet.
You know, Deborah, there is one way that parents can reliably find out what the good content is on Netflix. Would you like to know?
I would love to know.
They can listen to our podcast or check out our website at myscreentime2.com.
Perfect.
All right, now that little bit of self-promotion is over. So I have to ask, after our Pink Wine podcast last week, have you watched Anastasia yet? The world wants to know.
I have not.
Oh,
Sorry to
man.
disappoint.
I am so disappointed that after our conversation last week about how excited I am about Anastasia becoming a Disney princess, you did not rush right out to watch it.
I know, I'm sorry. Too much content.
But I have been watching Mary Poppins Returns in our standard, like, 16 segments per movie watching habits in our household. Did you say you took your kids to see that over the holidays?
We saw it in the theater and
Mhm.
we recently rewatched it because Libby and Nathan got to have a movie night and that was their pick.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
Well, we haven't finished it yet, but we did
Okay.
we did get to a really excellent dance sequence that really drove home how old I am, because there's this song called, I believe, Trip the Light Fantastic, or maybe The Life
Yes.
Fantastic. Is it Light Fantastic? I'm
I
not
think
sure.
in Mary Poppins Returns it's light because they're
Okay.
lamplighters.
Yes, okay. So it's a big musical number with the kids and Mary Poppins and the Lamplighters, and they're doing some awesome dance work. It's essentially this movie's answer to the classic Chim Chimney, right?
Mhm.
So I was watching it. I was loving it. It was so fun. You can't beat a good dance sequence. And then the bikes came out. And they started like with the bike ramps. And I was like, this was fine until the number became the X Games. Like, why do we need the bike ramps?
Were you afraid somebody was going to get hurt?
I just was like, go back to the real dancing. What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
It felt like
Yeah, I really liked that scene. It was really good.
I question whether that portion of it would just immediately date the whole thing. Like, is it now going to feel like a relic in 20 years? Like,
I'm not sure. I thought it was pretty timeless.
And they had established that the lamplighters ride bicycles, so like it wasn't completely out of the blue, like they just
Hmm.
suddenly introduced breakdancing or something. But it just felt like a weird anachronism to be like, okay, bike ramps. Well, whatever. All right,
I
now,
hope you get to finish it soon.
oh my gosh, sometime before 2020. Here's hoping. So let's move on to today's topic. Today we watched PBS Kids Let's Go Luna. It is an animated show that aims to teach kids about geography, and it premiered just last year in 2018. It was created by Joe Murray, whose, as far as I could tell, biggest previous credit was the show Rocco's Modern Life, which I watched in the 90s. Did you watch that in the 90s?
No,
Okay.
I've never heard of it.
I think it was a Nickelodeon property, so it may have at one point been in like the SNCC rotation lineup. Saturday
Got it.
Saturday night Nickelodeon for those of you who aren't as old as I've already established that I am. Uh, we watched this primarily online at PBS Kids, although episodes are also downloadable at Amazon from Amazon. And I copied the description from the PBS website, and I have some questions. So this is the description that they have. Leo, a wombat from Australia, Carmen, a butterfly from Mexico, and Andy, a frog from the United States, travel with their parents' performance troupe, Circo Fabuloso. At each stop, Luna the Moon guides them as they get to know the region and its people. My biggest question mark about that is Leo is a wombat from Australia?
I know. I thought he was a dog.
I thought he was a dog and he has no Australian accent. His accent is American, yes?
And Carmen has a very pronounced accent.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair that Leo doesn't get to have an Australian accent.
Yeah, it was just a really weird inclusion. So that was my big question mark about the plot synopsis. We picked this one because I don't know if you remember, but during our Carmen San Diego episode, I was a little disappointed by the rigor of the geography lessons we were receiving. So we were happy to go with another geography based show in the hopes of rectifying that. And looking back at our list, I could not believe this is only the fourth PBS show we've done.
I know. I know. It seems like PBS was the original children's programmer. So maybe we need to watch more PBS shows to make up for it. Listeners, tell us what you're watching on PBS.
Yeah.
Some of the things that are available on PBS, I feel like I've watched to death
Uh-huh.
when my kids were smaller. Like, I don't ever need to see another episode of Curious George.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the problem, at least initially, that everything on PBS seemed so long running that it just didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel relevant for us to cover. Like, we did an early episode about Word Girl, which was fun, but like, Word Girl was already like 10 years old at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
happy to see something new, happy to be reminded that PBS Kids has some great options. We watched episode 1, What's the Big Idea? Day of the Dead. The episodes were split into 2 segments. We call them halvesies at our house. Mostly in the context of, can I watch a halvesy before bed? So we watched episode 1, episode 6, which was The Big Dig and Amazing Man, and episode 12, Where's Luna and Pulling Strings. Deborah, would you like to take us through episode 1, and we will move on to our more general thoughts once we've covered all the episodes?
Yes. So in What's the Big Idea, we meet the circus kids, Andy, Carmen, and Leo, and they are in Mexico City. Somebody pulls like a globe from their pocket who introduces them to their new geographic location and introduces them to some local vocabulary. In this one, it was the words grande and amigos. And Andy just gets a real bee in his bonnet. He wants to paint a mural. So he sort of gets permission to paint a mural on Senor Fabuloso's, who's like the circus ringleader
Mhm.
on his trailer. And then it turns out that Senior Fabuloso didn't give explicit permission, but in the end, Andy's mural turns out beautifully.
Mhm.
Everybody's really happy.
Mhm.
They sing some songs. Luna comes down from the sky. They sing to her. And then in Day of the Dead, they learn about Dia de los Muertos. And Carmen, because she's from Mexico, she's like supposed to show everybody around. But the real problem in this episode is that she is scared of skeletons. So she is supposed to give this tour and she's supposed to play a song at her abuela's altar. Abuela and te amo are the vocabulary words in this halvesy. And Luna helps her get over her fear of the dead. What did you think?
Okay, we will get more into this when we get into our more general thoughts, but like I was immediately so viscerally put off by the look of this cartoon that I was primed to hate it.
Okay.
But then I loved it. Plot twist.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought it was great across the board. I loved how, in giving the lessons about the city that they were, they didn't try and focus on like the entire country of Mexico or the entire city of Mexico City. They picked one thing, they kept it manageable, and they got those points across really well. What did you think?
I liked it. I had a hard time getting past the fact that Andy looks like Pepe the Frog.
Yeah, maybe that is why I reacted so strongly against it. You're right. I didn't. Yeah.
I was like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? This is a pretty new show. Couldn't you pick like a different animal or make him look less like a right-wing troll meme?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That must be why I was immediately like, there is something distasteful about this. Wow. Thanks for putting your finger on it.
I liked the geography lessons. I liked most of the show, but then in the lesson, like the learning point in the Day of the Dead episode, like Luna says, if you're afraid of something, you should just laugh it off. And I had a real problem with that advice. I felt like she was really diminishing Carmen's genuine fear of skeletons.
That's true.
I just couldn't get behind this particular episode, that halvesy.
And also, since we have such a recent comparison as far as the lessons about Dia de los Muertos is concerned in the movie of Coco, which, if you haven't seen it, listeners, I think we can both heartily endorse it. I mean, the lesson about what the Day of the Dead was very, very superficial.
Yes.
And there was a lot of focus on sugar skulls, which I have never encountered, but look disgusting. Like, they're just globs of sugar. I do not want to eat those.
No.
But I can get behind you on the bad advice. Yes.
So should we move on to
Episode
6?
All right. So in The Big Dig and Amazing Man, we find our trio exploring the city of Cairo in Egypt. The Big Dig finds them looking for ancient artifacts, and they are introduced to, is it a professor? Yes, a professor of archaeology, or maybe, no, he or she, I actually don't remember.
The archaeologist worked for a museum.
Okay, yep. An archaeologist that works for a museum that teaches the kids what an ancient artifact is, and the fact that they dug up like a used toothbrush and an old retainer. That those aren't exactly ancient artifacts, but they did end up finding a really big buried pharaoh statue, and in the process they got a little lesson about archaeology and how if you find something that's really old, you shouldn't just dig it up. You have to be really careful and you don't want to disturb the scene. I actually thought it was pretty nuanced for a lesson about how we preserve the historical record.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second sequence was Amazing Man. The second halvesy was Amazing Man. And Andy was reading a comic book called Amazing Man in Cairo. And there was a riddle at the end of the comic book that had a hint for the plot of the next issue, but the riddle was written in hieroglyphs. So the trio learned about hieroglyphs and how they were one of the first forms of writing. And this is where they met the professor who deciphered the hieroglyphs for them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I knew there was a professor somewhere in there. So that was pretty much the plot of these two. What did you think about episode 6?
I thought it was pretty good. I didn't really care for, there was a song about artifacts. I didn't really care for Luna's Cleopatra wig or her walk like an Egyptian dance.
Yeah, we have talked about that in the past. Like if we're allowed to do the walk like an Egyptian.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. And so I'm going to say probably no.
Okay.
Like, if you have to ask if something is racist, it probably is racist, which is something I've learned from my other favorite podcast, Yo, Is This Racist? But otherwise, I thought it was pretty cute.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I also thought that the Amazing Man, who is a dog, was like a little bit too close to Dave Pilkey's Dogman books.
Oh, okay. And I
don't
still
know.
do not have any experience with Dogman, even like a year after we did our Planet Pilkey episode.
That's okay.
The focus in this episode was really on the history of the place as opposed to the modern culture of Egypt, which was a contrast from the pilot episode. Did that give you any pause? Like some places they travel, it feels like they're just ignoring that people live there now.
I know, like there was no Arab Spring song. I mean, maybe I think if you were to do like a one-word association drill, if you say Egypt, most Americans would say pyramids.
That's right.
And so that's just where your brain goes. But yeah, it's dismissing the current culture.
Well, and you have two
And people.
halfsies. Like do one about history and one about today.
That's a good suggestion.
All right. Do you want to move on to episode 12?
Sure. Episode 12, Where's Luna and Pulling Strings. So the Circo Fabuloso is now in Delhi, India, and the kids cannot find Luna. She's not in the sky. Luckily, in Delhi, India, there are these 300-year-old buildings that people used to study the sky. It's kind of like a giant sundial, I guess. And they like bait Luna with her hat, and she eventually comes to them. Then there was like a fable about like a short in between the two halvesies about two brothers, and I did not really follow that at all. I thought it was a little jarring. And then in Pulling Strings, they're still in Delhi, and the conflict in this halvesy is that the kids want to listen to music and see art. And so Andy, I think, wants to listen to music. Carmen wants to see art. So Leo finds the perfect blend of the two in a artist neighborhood. He finds a couple doing a puppet show. And what is Leo's problem? That he just wants to make the other people happy, and he doesn't have any desires of his own, right?
I am so glad that you hit upon that too, because it really bothered me. Like, so often in these shows, characters are kind of defined by their one trait. Like Carmen is defined by the fact that she likes music, and Andy is defined by the fact that he likes art. But Leo is just like this poor boy from Australia that doesn't even have an Australian accent. He's like, he has no
He's just a
identity.
people pleaser.
Yes. Oh, poor Leo. I really hope that some other episodes give him his due because he's kind of a blank slate right now. Poor kid. Did it bother you at all that the Where's Luna episode was all about astronomy, but they never once mentioned the obvious fact that Luna wasn't in the sky because it was a new moon? Like, it was all about astronomy, but they never mentioned astronomy.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really weird. It would have been a great teachable moment to talk about how the moon goes around the Earth and you don't see it all the time. And
Yeah,
it's not always nighttime when the moon is out. Those
right.
are pretty basic concepts.
As it was, I'm not sure that Hevsey had any lesson at all, other than this
I
awesome
know.
architectural feature in Delhi.
Right. And I did find Luna at the end, she's like, there's always tomorrow, which was a very Scarlett O'Hara thing to say. I kind of liked I kind of liked that ending.
Yeah, I liked it too, in that it was a way of admitting that they weren't going to be able to cover everything about a place, and they were just upfront about it.
Hmm.
And they said, that's not what we do. There's always more to learn.
Right.
So don't blame us. Nice little Luna's covering her moon butt. Her moon, her full moon. I amuse myself. Okay. What did you think about the concept in general? Were you happy with this as a show about travel and about geography?
I think so, and I think it also removes some of the stigma previously in children's literature about running away with the circus.
That's true.
I thought it was all right. I like the different locations. I like Luna as a character. I liked that globy thing that gave them the lessons. I
Magic
thought
globe.
Senor Fabuloso was pretty a good character. I think we didn't mention that he's a pink flamingo
Oh, yeah.
with a mustache.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was okay. How about you?
Well, the one big question mark for me, I could get behind the traveling circus as the excuse for why they were doing all this traveling, but why the moon? Like, what? Is it just because Luna can be there with them all day because, like, her job is at night? Is that the only excuse for why the moon is their friend?
Maybe because they travel so much, the moon is a constant.
Oh, that's a good point. Like,
Maybe.
somewhere out there beneath the pale moonlight style.
Yeah. Yeah, no matter where they are on the globe, like, because even the stars are different in the southern hemisphere.
That's true.
So, I don't know.
Did you?
And their parents were notably absent.
Oh, yeah. Like, they were totally chill with their kids just piecing out with the moon all day.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my other big question. Do you feel like Magic Globe and Luna are adequate substitutes for a more regimented education for these children?
Yeah, is this their circus homeschool?
I mean, I guess.
Kind of.
Did you learn anything while you were watching?
I mean, I didn't know about those buildings in Delhi,
Mm-hmm.
the structures that people used to study the sky. That was
Mhm.
pretty interesting. Like I said before, I did not care for the just laugh at the dead people
Yeah.
in your family's history advice from Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
So I guess I liked, in terms of the lessons, I liked the Delhi, India one the most.
Mm-hmm. What about the characters? Were there any that were particularly great or grating to you?
We've already discussed Pepe the Frog.
Yeah.
I thought Carmen's accent was a little overdone. Like, why does she have an accent and the Australian doesn't? I know we've talked about this, but that was the most glaring thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we've mentioned Judy Greer plays Luna, and she's like the only actor in the pre-credits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they plaster her name on everything because she's the most notable person, and she was good. I
Yeah.
liked her. Likable moon voice.
Yes, I am a Judy Greer fan, so I was happy to hear her.
Mhm.
I kind of liked that her singing voice wasn't great. Like, it didn't feel too polished.
Yeah, there was one that was like definitely out of her range.
Yeah.
I think that was in the Mexico City one.
Other than Judy Greer, were there any voice actors that stood out for you?
No, I was just too starstruck.
Yeah. Yep. Now, I mentioned my immediate reaction against the animation style. Did you have any? And I'm so glad you mentioned that thing about Pepe the Frog because you are so right. Did you have any other thoughts of the rest about the rest of the animation?
I thought it was fine. Everything about this show was fine. Um, Honestly, I keep in my head thinking about Luna as a clock instead of the moon.
Hmm.
And I think if you ask me like next week what we watched, I would say we watched this show about Luna the clock. I don't know why. I have a block in my head about that. I thought that the characters were kind of, with the exception of Pepe, I thought the characters were funny.
Right.
And especially the um Fabuloso, the flamingo.
I had to look back at like I watched a compilation of a bunch of clips from Rocco's Modern Life just to see if I was reacting to something from that show that I really disliked. And that's why I was so uncomfortable with this animation style. And it is very similar. And Rocco's Modern Life is situated so specifically in the 90s that I wonder
Hmm.
if that was giving me pause too. It's just I disliked it in a very similar way to how I dislike the animation style on SpongeBob SquarePants. I don't know what it is about the way those
Oh,
drawings are
okay.
done and the way those characters are rendered that just doesn't land with me. The way they're stylized. I wish I had the vocabulary to explain it in greater depth other than to say that I just didn't care for it and it was a major downfall for me because I pretty much liked everything about the plot. So, how about the music?
I thought it was catchy, simple. Like the theme song has some nice harmonies. It was
Mm-hmm.
like sort of Daniel Tiger-esque.
Mm-hmm. There was one song in particular that Andy, the frog, Pepe, sang about murals in the very first episode, What's the Big
Yeah.
Idea? That I really enjoyed because it was like the perfect stream of consciousness song. Like the lyrics were just what you would sing if you were just like tooling around, painting a mural, like doing whatever you're doing. You're just essentially singing what you're doing. And as someone who does that all the time, I could really relate.
Nice.
Um, I also really liked the moment in Pulling Strings where Leo goes to find Luna by himself because Andy and Carmen are fighting. And they have this little
Hmm.
song that they sing when they first meet up with Luna every time. Usually the song is split between the three characters, but when Andy goes by himself, he has to sing it all alone and he like visibly gets tired, which I thought was just a
Yeah.
really, really cute touch. They did also try and make the songs match the culture that they were in, which, as you mentioned with the Egyptian episode, wasn't always super successful. But, you know, I guess a good effort.
I am curious about what adult movie or TV show you thought this compared to.
I had two, actually. One
Okay.
with all the international travel, it reminded me a bit of Alias,
Oh, okay.
a great spy show that always involved like different fantastic locations. And it also, with the presence of Luna the Moon, reminded me a bit of Wilfred, which I feel like is a show that we bring up a lot on the podcast, just because the whole having a companion that no one else can see is kind of an obvious comparison for kids' TV. Although it seems like everyone else can see Luna when she's walking around, which was super weird.
Yeah.
But those were my comparisons.
I was able to compare it to the Hangover movie franchise
Okay.
because there was a very like they don't know where they are. They don't know how they got there. They don't know the language. There's a very like what do we do next quality to the circus life
Yeah.
that I felt was similar to The Hangover, like when they wake up and they don't know like why there's a tiger in the living room or who they got married to,
Now I'm trying to
where
match
their
up the
pants are.
characters. Like, I guess Zach Galifianakis would be the frog.
Yeah, I guess.
Um, that's a good one. Did you cast the gritty HBO reboot? Speaking of Zach Galifianakis,
I kind of did. Okay, so Judy Greer reminds me a lot of Anne Hesh and Hope
really?
Davis
Okay.
and Gwyneth Paltrow. Like they're all pretty in the same way to me.
Oh, they have really
And they all
slim
have,
noses.
yes, yeah, and long, straight blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see them all playing different versions of Luna, like
Ooh.
sort of like the ghosts of Christmas past visiting Scrooge. And I would like to, like, each one could be like meaner than the next or spookier than the next, but still they're kind of interchangeable.
I love it.
And they would visit comedians like Charlene Yee, Craig Robinson, Tiffany Haddish, and try to give them like lessons,
I
life
love
lessons.
it. I like the idea of like a mean Gwyneth Paltrow coming into people's lives to give them lessons. It's like Goop personified. Like, here's
Yeah.
everything you're doing wrong, and here are how these expensive crystals can make it better.
Yeah.
I really like that. So I just straight up cast the central trio, and I thought we could solidify Leo's place as an actual Australian by making him Chris Hemsworth, who we've all discovered is actually funny. So I think he could bring a lot to the role.
Mm-hmm.
And then John Cho could be Andy because we have to cast John Cho in everything.
Yay.
And then I was kind of at a loss for an actress to do Carmen. I didn't want to put Gina Rodriguez in there because we had just done Carmen Sandiego. And then I thought maybe America Ferrera. But then it occurred to me that like Netflix has been kind of hitting it out of the park with a ton of these Spanish language shows that are doing really well. And I feel like there must be an actress in there who could fit the bill. And I unfortunately have not watched any of them just because Kevin does not care for subtitles and our grown-up TV time is so limited. So I didn't have
Yeah.
a specific there, but I thought that there must be a good slate of people to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that we could get Christoph Waltz to reprise his role as a scary circus ringleader from Water for Elephants. Is that what that
that's
movie was
good.
called?
Yeah.
So he could be Senor Fabuloso, and then we could just have Judy Greer be Luna because she's good.
Right. I like that. That's good.
Thanks. Not as good as yours, but I feel like it's a pretty solid lineup. Did you think it was better when we were kids?
I can't think of a show that compares to this from my
Mhm.
childhood. Really. And I think the original Carmen Sandiego, if we're just going with like the geography based show, was
Mhm.
better than Luna.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I would say no, because I clearly liked this more than you did. So I would take
Mhm.
this over the original Carmen Sandiego. I also would take this over Rocco's Modern Life, which, like I said, just feels like such a time capsule. It's so 90s in its aesthetic. I feel like this one will probably age a little better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
No, but I would have zero problem with Jay watching it. How about you?
I am not going to watch this alone voluntarily, and I think it's fine for our kids, but
Mhm.
I don't think my kids would be into it. I think they're a little older because
Yeah.
it's like more of a preschool-y
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
So,
Whereas I watched I think most of the episodes with Jay, and I was really glad that he was into it. We could use a show in our rotation that has less violence, that has a little bit more of an educational component. Like, I was happy to see him enjoying it. And yeah, I would happily watch this again with him. Ratings?
I would say 3.
I give it a solid 4. I really enjoyed it. Aside from the off-putting animation style, which I guess is like the majority of the show, I liked it despite that, which I think speaks a lot to the quality of its content.
Nice.
All right, you want to talk
It's
us
fun
out?
when we agree to disagree. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm right. But yes, it's fun to agree to disagree.
Oh, thank you so much for listening to this episode of It's My Screen Time Too. You can rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can look at our website and sort through old episodes and get show recommendations at myscreentime2.com. And we're still on Facebook at facebook.com/myscreentime2. And we often post what we're covering about our next episode and links to our Screen Time News articles or podcasts. You can tweet us with show or movie suggestions, article recommendations, or general comments at myscreentime2. Email myscreentime2@gmail.com. And our theme music was composed and performed by me and my adorable children. And our podcast is produced by Katie. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV beloved by kids and tolerated by parents.
Bye.
Screen time. Screen time.